various programs and bid incentives that are offered by the city in order to maximize opportunities and to put you in the most advantageous position to be determined the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Okay. Before we jump into the substance of today's topic, I want to give you a little background on the Department of Procurement Services, or what is known as DPS. DPS is the city's contracting authority for the procurement or the purchasing of goods and services for the city's use and benefits. And we here in DPS, we work with the various city departments and contractors and bidders to facilitate an open, fair, and timely procurement process. So today I'm going to talk about city programs, bid incentives, and I'm going to touch on diversity reporting requirements. The programs and incentives all have specific qualifications, and the information that I'm going to present is subject to change from time to time. So it's important that with every bid, you always review the details of the bid package, and then you also consult the city's website or the DPS website to ensure you have all of the most up-to-date information and project-specific information. I'm going to be covering a lot of information, and I ask that if you have any questions, just please jot them down, because we've reserved some time at the end of this presentation to allow for questions and answers, but we want to ensure that we get through all of the material. Okay, so let's just jump right into the substance of today's workshop, beginning with city programs. The city offers 7 programs to encourage participation in city contracting. First is the Small Business Initiative for construction, the Mid-Sized Business Initiative for construction, the Non-Construction Mid-Sized Business Initiative, the Diversity Credit, the Mentor Protege Program, the Target Market Program, and the Phased Graduate Program. I'm going to discuss the basics of each of these programs so you're aware of their purpose and who is eligible for them. Beginning with the Small Business Initiative for construction. This program is designed to encourage small businesses to participate in city-funded construction projects with a maximum total cost of $10 million. To qualify for this program, the bidder must be a small business with a principal place of business in the 6-county region. And so that is Cook County, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, or Will County. There are 2 tiers to this program. For Tier 1, the estimated project cost must be between $2 million and $10 million. And the bidder can't exceed 1.5 times the Small Business Administration's size standards. The bidder also can't exceed 1.5 times the certification personal net worth limit. Tier 2 is for smaller projects with an estimated total project cost of $2 million. In this tier, bidders cannot exceed half of the Small Business Administration's size standards and half of the certification personal net worth limits. Additionally, the small business must perform the majority of the work with its own workforce and or subcontractors who also have to be small businesses. The second program is the Mid-Sized Business Initiative for construction. This program is designed to increase small and mid-sized business participation in city-funded construction projects that have a total cost between $10 million and $20 million. To qualify for this program, the bidder must be a small or mid-sized business with a principal place of business in the 6-county region. Again, that's Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, and Will County. The bidder may not exceed 2 times the Small Business Administration's size standard, and 2 times the certification personal net worth. Also, the bidding business must perform at least 51% of the work with its own workforce and or subcontractors who are also small or mid-sized local businesses. The next program is for, I'm sorry. Yes, okay, so the next program is for non-construction mid-sized businesses, which is designed to increase small and mid-sized business participation in city-funded non-construction projects with a total cost of $3 to $10 million. To qualify for this program, the bidder must be a small or mid-sized business with a principal place of business in one of the 6 counties. The bidder cannot exceed 1.5 times the Small Business Administration's size standards. And then the bidding business must perform, again, at least 51% of the work on the contract with its own employees or subcontractors, who also must be small or mid-sized local businesses. Next, we have the Diversity Credit Program. This program is quite different from the 3 prior programs that I've discussed in that it's designed to increase participation of minority and women-owned businesses in private contracts rather than government-funded contracts. And it does this by making participation in those private contracts eligible for credit towards minority business and women business goals in city contracts. To qualify for this program, you must participate in a private contract that has no affirmative action goals. You must use minority business enterprises or women business enterprises despite not having affirmative action goals in that contract. And then the minority business or women-owned business must perform direct commercially useful functions. And the work must be in an area of specialty certified by the city. If all of the conditions are met, the bidder then receives $1 credit for every $3 earned on that contract. That credit can then be used on a city contract with a maximum of 5%. So if you earn credits on a private contract, those credits can be used on a separate city contract. So for example, you earned credits on a private contract and you want to bid on a separate city contract that has MBE or WBE goal of 25%. You can apply up to 5% worth of credits to that city contract and reduce your goal from 25% to 20%. You should also note that with these credits, they can only be used once and they expire within a year of earning them. Next, we have the Mentor Protege Program, which is designed to increase participation and the capacity of MBEs and WBEs in city contracts by making those MBEs and WBEs utilize and mentorship eligible for credit towards MBE and WBE goals in city contracts. If a bidder intends to participate in this program, the bidder must indicate its intention on its proposal or its bid. Additionally, the bidder will have to create a written mentor-protege agreement. That agreement needs to demonstrate that the bidder is assisting the protege in becoming a self-sustaining, competitive, and profitable business. The agreement will have to be approved by the CPO over here in DPS. The rules and regulations site also have a sample agreement for your reference. So if you're interested in this program, you can reference that sample agreement over on our website. Also, half of a percentage participation credit will be earned for every 1% performed by the protege. So for every 1% of that contract that's performed, you will earn half credit. The prime or subcontractor can be the mentor. And then the prime may also be eligible for a 1% bid incentive. Next is the Target Market Program. And this is designed to provide opportunities for city certified MBEs and WBEs to be exclusive bidders on city non-construction contracts or on a joint venture consisting of the two. The prime may subcontract up to 50% of the dollar value of the contract to subcontractors who are not MBEs or WBEs. The last program is the MBE WBE Phased Graduation Program. This program is designed to maximize diversity in the city's contracting by making established businesses eligible for continued participation in the city's MBE and WBE construction and non-construction programs for at least three additional years. When an MBE or WBE firm exceeds the gross receipts or employee size for a city certification, or the firm's owner's personal net worth exceeds the personal net worth limits for certification, the firm is no longer eligible for certification as an MBE or WBE. So in those instances, the firm will be phased out of the certification status over 3 years. When those firms are in that phase out period, the credit earned for their work on a contract as an MBE or a WBE is reduced. So in the first year, the work the firm completes on a contract will receive a 75% credit. So a 75% credit. So for instance, contractor A has a contract valued at $100. And on that contract, they have an MBE or a WBE goal of 20%. Since the goals are counted in dollars, that would be 20%. That 20% is basically $20 worth of work on that $100 contract. If an MBE or a WBE who is in the phase out program performs work equal to the $20, for purposes of meeting the contractor's MBE or WBE goals, that $20 worth of work will be reduced to its 75% value toward meeting their goals. So instead of $20, it would be $15 toward the MBE and WBE goals. In year 2, the credit is reduced to 50%. So in that same scenario, the MBE or WBE's $20 worth of work would only earn the contractor $10 towards meeting their MBE and WBE goals. And then in year 3, the credit is reduced to 25%. So that $20 worth of work would amount to $5 towards the MBE, WBE goals. Alrighty. Moving on to bid incentives. Bid incentives are artificial price reductions that function by reducing the bidder's total bid for evaluation purposes. The ultimate contract price will remain unaffected by the bid incentive. Listed here are all of the bid incentives that the city offers. Some are for construction-only projects, some are specific to non-construction projects, and then others can be applied to both construction and non-construction projects. So how do bid incentives work? When you receive your bid package, the incentives that can be used for that project will be listed in that bid package. The package will also include a list of information you need to submit for each incentive. If you want a particular incentive, you must submit all of the requested information for that incentive. If you qualify for the incentive, if you submit all of the requested information, then the incentive will be granted. And again, for evaluation purposes only, your bid will be lowered. And since contracts are awarded to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder, an incentive can really make a difference in who is awarded the contract and who is not. There are some incentives that can't be combined or can't be used simultaneously. They're all listed here. I'm not going to go through the entire list, but I'm putting this on your radar so you know that there are conflicts that you should be aware of. This information is also available on the DPS website. If an incentive is applied and you are awarded the contract, you may be required to submit documentation at contract closeout or at various times throughout the performance of the contract to demonstrate that you are meeting your commitments. If you fail to meet your commitments, you can be subject to fines up to 3 times the amount of the incentive granted. There could be a denial of earned credit certification, and there could also be a finding of non-responsibility, which would prohibit you from being awarded future contracts. Okay. Now that we know how incentives work, let's move on to discuss some of the particulars of each of these incentives, beginning with the apprentice utilization incentive. This incentive is designed to encourage prime contractors to utilize apprentices in construction contracts with an estimated value of $100,000 or more. For purposes of this incentive, an apprentice is any person who is sponsored into an apprenticeship training program by a contractor that is authorized by a union to sponsor apprentices and is enrolled in or has graduated from a construction technology training program administered by the city of Chicago colleges, or is a graduate of a high school operated by CPS. This incentive provides earned credit for future contracts. The credit is good for 3 years and can only be used one time. There are 2 tiers to this incentive. First is when the bidder commits to having 5 to 10% of work performed by an apprentice. In these instances, the bidder gets a 0.5% bid incentive. The second tier is for when the bidder commits to having 11 to 15% of work performed by an apprentice. In those cases, the bidder then gets a 1.5% bid incentive. The next incentive is the Equal Employment Opportunity Incentive, which is designed to increase the utilization of minority and women journey workers, apprentices, and laborers on construction projects with estimated values of $100,000 or more. This incentive uses a canvassing formula whereby bidders propose minority and women utilization levels as a percentage of work hours on the project. The result of the formula calculation is the award criteria figure, and that's what's used to compare bids. For purposes of calculating the incentive, there is a commitment cap of 15% for women and 70% for minority workers. I want to emphasize that the caps are solely used for calculating the incentive. By no means no way means the bidder can't employ more than 15% women or more than 70% minorities. With this incentive, the bidder can also be given 150% credit for every work hour performed by a minority or woman worker who resides in a socioeconomically disadvantaged area. The next incentive is for ex-offender apprentice, for the ex-offender apprentice incentive, which is designed for prime contractors to sponsor and utilize ex-offender apprentices for construction projects with an estimated value of $100,000 or more. The Department of Family and Support Services works with delegate agencies to recruit, screen, and refer potential qualified candidates. All candidates go through an initial intake process where their eligibility for the program is determined. The incentive offers earned credit for future city contracts. Those credits are valid for 3 years and can only be used to win one contract. So if you apply the incentive to a bid and you do not win that contract, you can use that incentive, or you can use those credits to try to win future bids. But once you are awarded a contract in which you applied the incentive, you can no longer use that incentive. Or excuse me, you can no longer use that credit. The incentive is offered in 2 tiers. If the bidder commits to 5 to 10% of labor being performed by ex-offenders, then they can receive a 0.5% reduction. For the second tier, if the bidder commits to 11 to 15% of work being performed by ex-offenders, then a 1% reduction is offered. The next bid incentive is for project area subcontractors, which is designed for prime contractors to utilize project area subcontractors for construction projects. The project area will vary with each project. Again, this is why it's important to review your bid package, because the bid package will state the specific area that has been deemed the project area for that particular project. To qualify for this incentive, the subcontractor must conduct meaningful day-to-day business at a facility in the project area, and that facility must be the place of employment for the majority of the subcontractor's full-time workforce. The subcontractor must also hold all applicable city licenses and be subject to city taxes. Like many of the other incentives discussed, this incentive is offered in tiers. For the first tier, if the contractor commits to 1 to 16% of work being performed by project area subcontractors, then a 0.5% incentive is offered. For tier 2, if the commitment is 17 to 32%, the incentive is 1%. For tier 3, if the commitment is 33 to 49%, the incentive is 1.5%. And then for tier 4, if the commitment is 50% or more, the incentive is a 2% reduction. A side note about project area generally is that on projects with estimated values of $100,000 or more, the municipal code requires contractors to have at least 7.5% of work performed by project area residents and 50% of the work performed by city residents. Work performed by project area residents can also be counted towards the 50% needed to be performed by city residents. Okay. The last construction-only incentive is the veteran-owned subcontractor utilization incentive, which is designed to encourage utilization of veteran-owned subcontractors. To qualify for this incentive, the bidder must be a veteran-owned small business, or the bidder must utilize a veteran-owned small business contractor in the performance of its contract. Again, this incentive is offered in tiers. For tier 1, the commitment is 1 to 16%. The incentive is a 0.5%. For tier 2, the commitment must be 17 to 32%. The incentive offered is 1%. For tier 3, the commitment must be 33 to 49%, and the incentive is 1.5%. And then for tier 4, if the commitment is 50% or more, the incentive is a 2% reduction. The first non-construction incentive is for city-based manufacturers, which, as its name implies, is designed to increase contracting or supplying opportunities and participation by city-based manufacturers in contracts with an estimated total value of $100,000 or more. To qualify for this incentive, the manufacturer must be licensed by, taxed by, and operating within the city. Again, here there are 3 tiers for this incentive. Tier 1 is a 25 to 49% commitment. The incentive is a reduction of 1%. Tier 2 is a commitment of 50 to 71% of goods. But yeah, 50 to 71% of goods by city-based manufacturers. The incentive is 1.5% reduction. And then tier 3 is a commitment of 75% or more, and the incentive is 2%. The remainder of the incentives are for both construction and non-construction projects, beginning with the alternatively powered vehicles incentive, which is designed to increase the use of alternatively powered vehicles by city vendors on contracts with an estimated value of $100,000 or more. Alternatively powered vehicles include vehicles fueled by any alternative fuel, including natural gas, liquefied petroleum, gas, hydrogen, ethanol, E85, electricity, and those are just a few. So this list is not all inclusive. To qualify for this incentive, the vendor must be located in the 6-county region. So again, that's Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, or Will County. They must have a fleet of at least 10 vehicles, and the majority of that fleet must be located and used in the 6-county region, and the majority of the vehicles must be alternatively powered. And then you can earn a 0.5% bid incentive. All right. The business enterprises owned or operated by people with disabilities incentive is designed to increase contracting opportunities for business enterprises owned or operated by people with disabilities. To qualify for this incentive, the prime or subcontractor must be 51% or more owned by a person or persons with a disability. The business must be must be certified by the city as a business enterprise owned by people with disabilities. Again, this incentive is tiered. Tier 1, participation of 2 to 5%. The bid incentive is 1%. Tier 2, 6 to 9% commitment receives a 2% incentive. Commitment of 10 to 13% receives a 3% incentive, and 14 or more results in a 4% incentive. Next is the city-based business incentive, which is designed to create contracting opportunities and participation by city-based businesses on contracts with a value of $100,000 or more. The incentive is tiered in a slightly different way than all of the others. The first incentive is for 4%, and you can earn this 4% if the business is conducting meaningful business from a facility within the city. The majority of that business's regular full-time employees work from that facility. And then the business must also hold all applicable city licenses and be subject to city taxes. A 6% incentive is also available if the business qualifies for that 4% incentive, and then if also the majority of the regular full-time employees are city residents. There's also an 8% incentive that is available if the business qualifies for the 6% incentive, and the majority of the businesses, city residents, the majority of its city resident employees live in socioeconomically disadvantaged areas. So in the last slide for the city-based incentive, and then earlier when I discussed the Equal Employment Opportunity Program, I mentioned socioeconomically disadvantaged areas. This is a map created by the Department of Planning and Development that shows the areas that are currently designated as socioeconomically disadvantaged. This map is subject to change based on a variety of factors. So again, this is why it's important to always refer back to your bid package, because a copy of the most current map will always be provided in your bid package. And then also this map in its current version is always available on the DPS website. Alrighty, back to the individual bid incentives. This is the bid incentive to encourage minority business enterprises and women business enterprise participation on contracts where no MBE or WBE goals can be assigned because there simply aren't enough certified firms available. To qualify for this incentive, the bidder has to submit a compliance plan with their bid, and that compliance plan needs to demonstrate how they intend to use MBE and WBE firms within that project. The MBE or WBE participation can be by a prime or a subcontractor and can be either direct or indirect participation. The incentive has two tiers, so we're still on the bid incentive to encourage MBE and WBE participation. This incentive has two tiers, six tiers, where the bidder can earn anywhere from 0.75% reduction to a 2% incentive reduction. The amount of the incentive earned will depend on the percentage of estimated contract dollars that the bidder commits to having been performed by the WBE or MBE. Next is the veteran-owned and small business joint venture incentive, which is designed to increase contracting opportunities and participation by small local veteran-owned businesses and eligible joint ventures consisting of one or more veteran-owned business enterprises, all on contracts with an estimated total value of $100,000 or more. This incentive is for a 5% reduction, and to qualify, the bidder can be a veteran-owned business, which is a business that has 51% or more veteran ownership and certified by the city, or the bidder can be a joint venture. And so for the joint venture, for the joint ventures to qualify for this incentive, all members must be a small business, veteran-owned business, or both. At least one member must be a veteran-owned business. All small businesses must collectively have at least 30% interest in the joint venture. All veteran-owned businesses must collectively have at least 30% interest in the joint venture. The joint venture partners must perform 20% of the work, and none of the joint venture members can act as brokers. Okay, so the last incentive is the diverse workforce and management bid incentive, which is designed to encourage contractors to employ a diverse workforce and or management in contracts with an estimated total value of $100,000 or more. There are multiple tiers to this incentive for both a diverse workforce and a diverse management. Incentives for both workforce and management can be combined. So you can receive up to 6% incentive for a diverse workforce and up to 4% for having diverse management, for a total of 10%. Okay, before I wrap up, I want to touch on the business diversity reporting requirements. In early 2021, an executive order was issued that requires contractors to submit projections as to when and what extent they intend to use certified firms. Contractors are expected to provide a detailed explanation of the firms and will be a detailed explanation on how the firms will be used, and then also to include a recovery plan should they fall short of the projected usage. The executive order also requires contractors to submit annual reports of their individual business diversity programs, or if they don't, then also report that we don't. Reports are due on July 1 of every year. And like I said, even if the business does not have a diversity program, you still need to report, hey, we don't have a diversity program. Okay, so that concludes the presentation on the city's programs and bid incentives. So I will turn things back over to Jackie to field any questions.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn, for your great presentation. And if you have any questions, if you can use the Q&A panel for your questions, that would be greatly appreciative, because I can use the chat to send you some information of where you can find things. But I do have a question in the chat panel, so I will read it to you. It basically says, can you please elaborate as to what a credit means?
Sure. Can you specify to which program or incentive you're speaking of?
I'm not sure. They did not.
Okay.
And I'm not sure. Uh, I'm not sure who wrote it. So
Okay.
if you could just do a general.
Yeah, so for instance, with the mentor protege program, a half percentage participation credit can be earned. And so that means that based on either the participation of the specified group or the bidder's commitment to using that particular group, can be added. Okay, so a 0.5% participation credit can be earned for every 1% performed. So the amount of work that is being performed on that contract is converted to dollar amounts. So based upon the total value of the contract and the total value of the work performed by the particular group, that can be considered a credit, and then you receive an incentive based upon that credit. So for instance, I gave an example where an MBE goal, minority or women business enterprise goal, is 25%, and the minority or woman business performs work that is equivalent to 10%. That would be a credit of 10%. So I guess it kind of differs with each incentive. So I really need to know which incentive you're talking about or which program to give you a precise answer. Because the way credits are attributed are different. And so I really need to know the incentive. So if you can follow up, that would be great.
Oh, I forgot. I'm just talking and I'm not on mic. Okay, I guess that was it. I'm going to put in the chat also while we're at a pause, and it gives you a little chance to write a few extra questions if you have any. I put in the chat where you can find the buying plan You can find the playlist and where you can find PowerPoints. So if that will help you, I have included that in the chat area. If there are any more questions, if anyone has any questions in the Q&A panel, or if you send it to me in the chat, feel free to do that now. If not, I'm going to wrap up and say thank you to our guest speaker, Jocelyn McCoy, for giving us that presentation. And thank all of you for participating today on this workshop. And we hope that you or invite you to come back and participate in additional workshops. Again, if you're looking for a thorough review and some information that you can take back and read and peruse for further understanding, I would suggest the 4-volume set of the resource set guides because it has everything in there about certification, compliance, incentives and programs, and also our contracting administration side, the fundamentals of procurement. So without further ado, I just want to say thank you for participating today. We hope to see you back again. And I guess that's it. We'll go ahead and sign off because there's no additional questions that were asked. Thank you. Thank you, Jocelyn.
You're welcome.